Hims House, episode 1. We have arrived. I'm Jonathan Stern. I'm the host. And I am here today with equity analyst Lewis Stevens and industry insider Dr. H to build the definitive investor community for Hims and Hers. Dr. H, take it away.
Hey everyone, Dr. H here. I'm a board certified physician. I'll probably just be using my pseudonym because I remain an actively practicing physician in the telemedicine, telehealth world. To give a little context, I have contracted and worked within the HIMS system for about 3 to 4 years, seeing HIMS patients, doing like customer support, patient support, things like that, and currently remain practicing medicine within the telemedicine world. So it includes HIMS as competitors too. But just a lot of inside information of how systems work, what patients are expecting, what customers are looking for, and things like that.
And Lewis.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Lewis Stevens, and I'm an equity analyst. I've been researching HIMS since it went public via the Oaktree Capital SPAC, and I've tuned into virtually every earnings call that the company has performed since it went public. So I'm excited to bring that information to you alongside my fantastic colleagues here and Dr. H and Jonathan.
So just to set the stage here, I think it would be useful for episode 1 to cover some introductory questions. When I was learning about the stock 6 or 8 months ago, there are all sorts of things that were immediately obvious, and then a whole host of other items that I just couldn't get to the bottom of. I want to ask Lewis and Dr. H some questions just so that we're all on the same page before we go deeper and deeper and deeper in subsequent episodes. The first question is, HIMS operates outside of the traditional healthcare system. It's just fundamental to what the company is. What does that mean, and how legally, operationally, is it able to do this?
Just looking at the American healthcare system, it's kind of disjointed, and there's different ways patients will seek medical care. And I feel like in the past, 6, 7 years, and particularly in the past 3, 4 years with the COVID pandemic and things like that, the whole world of telemedicine has just kind of taken off. And HIMS is really at the forefront of this expansion of a new way that healthcare is delivered and accessible by patients. HIMS is really providing access to care for people who might traditionally not be able to get in to see their doctor. And they're able to do this by making some of those roadblocks and barriers easier for people. Traditionally, health insurance is a big player in the healthcare system. The classic way of seeing your doctor is you purchase or have employer-based healthcare insurance, and they dictate which doctors you see. Then you give a call to your doctor, and they may not be taking new patients. You give a call to the next office. And the big thing here is that when insurance is involved, there's just a lot of rules and steps and boundaries and regulations that both the patient and the doctor have to go through to get this care. Specifically with how HIMS operates, they're not operating in the insurance realm. The customers are paying cash. So it really bypasses a lot of these issues and barriers to getting the care that they need.
And so just to boil this down a bit more, with the traditional system, typically people go through insurance. With HIMS, people are paying cash. How is that possible?
The nature of our American healthcare system. It's not a universally, quote unquote, socialized medical system. It's a commercially based system. So if you are accepting insurance, you don't have to follow those specific rules that the insurance wants you to play by. So when you're paying cash, then you are able to, get the medicine, especially in the HIMS case, if they are providing you the medicine, then they're not going to be subject to the same authorization process. So just by not doing the insurance route, you're able to really skip a lot of these steps that you normally have to go by.
How is Hims able to offer drugs for 1/10 of the cost?
With the medical costs, Hims does offer many of the treatments involve generic medicines. For instance, their sexual health medicines for erectile dysfunction, hair loss, and things like that. Some of these medicines have been generic for a while. So at its core, you're able to offer generic medicines, which are just by nature more affordable. And we'll get into the details of how Hims operates. But it's not just the generics, and they have their special personalized offerings, but that's for later on. Hims is able to partner with pharmacies that can fill these prescriptions, and they'll negotiate contracts between Hims and the pharmacies. Sometimes pharmacies will provide volume discounts or different things that they'll negotiate. Basically, they'll work out contracts saying, we can offer your clients, your patients, this medicine, sildenafil, minoxidil, at this price, which can be much more affordable than if you were to go get it from Walgreens. So they're able to basically work with these pharmacies directly and get this at a better price. The main thing is the Hims' power and ability to have these working relationships with pharmacies to provide medicine for people.
Given that the generics are available for many of the drugs that Hims offers, what is this company's moat? Can't anyone just start selling generics?
Yeah, anyone could start their own company. Are they going to be able to reach out to patients in a way that's inviting and approachable as Hims has? That's something that's unique to Hims. I think what Hims is really trying to do, aside from offering generics, is they're really trying to focus on individualized, personalized medical care for people, where not everyone will fit as a cookie cutter into one situation with one treatment. Some people might need a combination of treatments. Some people might need a special formulation of a dosage of 2 medicines instead of 1. So I think you're right. Any company can just start offering generics. This was how Hims started, but their journey, I think, as a company is to really kind of change how healthcare is delivered to a much more personalized way. So I think that's what they're going to really push for, is just reinventing, revolutionizing individualized, personalized care.
I think I can add a consideration there. Just thinking through, the great investment theses or the great business successes of the last 20 to 30 years. For instance, Google was the 23rd search engine. So it operated in a sea of competition, and other people could create search engines. But ultimately, it was able to do the basics very well, do the basics very consistently, and create, superior user experience for the bulk of people. And that created momentum, that created, capital velocity, where they had more capital that they could then reinvest in the business to create an even better experience, which drew more people and more capital. And I think Hims is still a very young company, but if Hims goes on to be a defining business model, it'll be by virtue of really just doing the basics extremely well. And I think Dr. H can attest to that, having seen its performance, having seen the business from the inside and the performance of the business generally. It's just done the basics really well. And it comes to, I think one of the questions we might touch on today is related to vertical integration. There's a whole host of components to the value chain of Hims and Hers Health that mirror the value chain of the primary care provider or the urgent care, where there's a pharmaceutical component, there's patient interaction, client relationship management. Hims is vertically integrated all of those points of the value chain for this product that is urgent care or primary care or visit to the doctor's office. My take is, yes, it sounds simple and anybody can do it, but to do it for 2 million people, I think Hims has done it for like 10 million people now. but there's churn. That's just the nature of the business. You can fact check me on exactly how many patients they've seen, but that's the nature of the business. In hindsight, this vertical integration, this value chain it will be seen as more difficult than a lot of people have given him credit for. And like Dr. H was saying, atop this foundation of just doing this basic value chain very well, there's a lot more that there's a lot more differentiation that can occur, like personalized medications, unique weight loss protocols, and future products that require dosing titration and follow-up.
The key point there, Lewis, is that this personalization is only possible with a company that has vertically integrated every part of the chain.
I mean, I think it's a very important aspect of it. I don't think you can create like the really differentiated experience without vertically integrating, a beautiful app. The UI UX is such an important component of everything. It could be argued that Apple has succeeded and bested all of the competitors that it had, the sea of competition that it began with, because Steve Jobs was an artist and he was a creative genius in a lot of regards, as opposed to a technologist or engineer. And so that creativity, that artistic element, fueled a lot of the competitive advantages that Apple would go on to have, such as the App Store, the network effects in the App Store, the developer, user, operating system network effects. So I think it's like, Dr. H was saying, Hims has come a long way, and it's done this unique vertical integration strategy well. And we can see it's still digging that trench of vertical integration mode with the 503B pharmacy acquisition that's making now, MedSource RX. But as they expand into new interventions, new treatments, and as they evolve their current treatments, and then as they do just the very basic elements really well, which alone brought them to free cash flow generation, brought them to profitability. Once they have all of it in concert, the vertical integration, like to the greatest extent possible, which clearly we've not been at the greatest extent possible because we didn't have the 503B pharmacy. Once shipping times are reduced to 1 to 2 days, there's still, like, even now Hims is doing this very well. There's still room for improvement, and that alone illustrates that there's differentiation possibility.
To what you're saying, Lewis, the whole vertical integration thing, I think, is pretty essential. Him started out in late 2017-ish, early 2018. For many years, they were just really focusing on honing in on the bread and butter basic treatments, hair loss, sexual health. That's all they did. And during that point, I imagine that they were really getting their footing in, seeing how clinicians interact with customers and patients, getting their strategy set up for how the business is set up, like how are the orders handled and processed and shipped and delivered on time, how do we source and get the pharmacies to make sure they have everything in stock. So they were doing this bread and butter stuff for many years before even introducing other verticals or other customized treatments. They slowly added in skincare and dermatology, mental health. Like, all of these other verticals were introduced after they had already looked at the basics. So going forward, this whole vertical integration with their own, their app and their own pharmacies, I think that's all a big part of how they can go forward at this point within the past year or two of all these customized, personalized treatments.
I want to talk about GLP-1s. When I go to Yahoo Finance and I search Hims, half of the articles reference GLP-1s. They say something about GLP-1s. When I go to Twitter, half of the chatter is about these magical miracle weight loss drugs. And yet, Lewis, you've always said there's reason to be excited about Hims in the absence of GLP-1 weight loss drugs. Can you say a little bit more about that? Why should I be excited about Hims without GLP-1s?
Well, to answer this question, I've leaned on my conversations with Dr. H often in the past for, just the reason I so confidently talk about it is because Dr. H explained to me the different weight loss solutions that Hims offers on a very granular basis. So I'll leave that discussion to him. But just quantitatively, from Q4 23 to Q2 24, that 6 to 9 month window of time, Hims had its most successful product ramp in the company history. 6.5 years after it was founded in November 2017, Hims scaled its weight loss product that is not a GLP-1 product. The math I'm about to share had no contributions from GLP-1s. It scaled that product from $0 to over $100 million by the time it reported its Q2 2024 earnings in early August. So,
and when did it roll out the non-GLP-1 again?
Q4 2023. And so from Q4 2023 to Q2 2024, it ramped this product from 0 to 100 million plus.
So in 2 quarters.
In 2 quarters. It's unbelievable. And that narrative has been totally overshadowed by the GLP-1s nonsense, which is what I believe it is. Business can be rough and tumble, and companies get sued for a lot less than compounding drugs, patent infringements or suspected patent infringements. So, and that's something to talk about. But all of that aside, Hims has been firing on all cylinders, and its weight loss category has been a smashing success without GLP-1s. I don't want to get into the financials. This all will lead to a financials, but my question, Dr. H, could you explain the legacy weight loss product versus the GLP-1s? And the legacy weight loss product is what I'm talking about here. That's gone from 0 to 100 million plus. And so, what's that product? And then what's the value of that legacy product versus the value of the GLP-1s?
Yeah, the GLP-1s, it's the media darling now. Everyone wants it. Celebrities want it. You and I want it. But the legacy products, these are bread and butter oral medicines, non-injectable, that have been around a long time. Medicines like metformin, bupropion, pyramate, naltrexone. These are oral pill medicines used for weight management. Generic, but some of them are especially combined into a brand name medicine on the market. And what's interesting about this is that, to give you perspective from a medical point, a lot of doctors, unless you're specifically, fellowship trained obesity management physician in residency, if you're in primary care, you don't really learn a lot of these medicines in training. We're taught how to manage high blood pressure and diagnose, look at skin conditions, rashes, but we don't really do much about weight management. So in real life, if a patient wanted help with affordable medicines for weight loss, they may go to the primary doctor, who probably a big chunk of primary doctors aren't comfortable prescribing medicines like naltrexone. Naltrexone typically used for addiction management too, in addition to weight management. So some doctors in real life might get a little hesitant to actively manage these kinds of medicines for people who need them. So when these legacy medicines are now available online through the app with clinicians on the Hims platform who are specially trained and comfortable with these medicines, it just opens up a whole new world for patients to get into the door of an active weight management program that's supervised by a trained clinician or provider. There's still a big portion of people who don't want to do shots. They're like, no, I'm scared of needles. No way am I doing that myself. Or they might be like, I'm scared of it, but I really want to try these other options before I go down that route. The effectiveness rates of these oral medicines aren't as high as the GLP-1s, but you still will see some results. You'll see 5% weight loss, total body weight loss, 10% total body weight loss with these oral medicines. And in many cases, that just might be what a person needs to get from an overweight or slightly obese BMI status to a normal BMI. And they don't need the whole, 15, 20% weight loss of a GLP-1. So there's many factors where, you know what, this whole world of weight management medicines were previously very hard to access. And all of a sudden, you have doctors who are willing and comfortable prescribing to people who finally can access it.
What is the cost difference?
I think off the top of my head, the orals are around $79 a month. The injectables are like $200 to $300 a month.
Got it. So pretty significant. More than certainly more than 50%.
Yeah, and then also if you're comparing to the GLP-1 brand name medicines, even with insurance coverage, sometimes patients will be paying $500, $800, $1,000 a month, even with insurance coverage. Sometimes that's what I've heard from people.
Wow. This is related to a question I asked earlier. Maybe Lewis, you can take this. Curious, why hasn't Amazon been able to replicate Hims' business?
It's a great question. I was talking about it recently, just joking about it because, like I introduced this with the idea that I've been around the thesis for a while now, seen the ups and downs. I've heard about Amazon's pharmaceutical offering, the idea that they're just going to offer it for free, the whole telemedicine thing. They're just going to offer it for free as a part of a Prime subscription. They're going to use One Medical as their foot in the door to create a competitor, and just to provide historical context for those tuning into the thesis now. And I think the historical context is really important because you look at the stock chart and you just have to ask, what was going on during that period? Can you explain to me? I want to be comfortable with the thesis, but why would the stock fall 85%? What was the explanation for that? When Amazon fell 95%, it was related to the idea that it wasn't generating free cash flow in the early 2000s. And so, traders had a reason to get a little scared. And for Hims, one of the contributing factors to that unrelenting decline from 2021 to 2022 was the idea that Amazon or Walmart will release a product that competes and that successfully captures market share. And Amazon did release variations of Hims competitors. You'll find some articles where Hims was going to offer telemedicine internally. It was going to do like an AWS where it builds the product internally. It makes it really good, like it did with AWS in the 2000s. And then it begins offering that commercially to customers outside the business. And the stock was selling off on ideas like that. And Hims also wasn't generating free cash flow. But these ideas have been around. And so I'm not answering the question really directly by sharing this, but I just wanted to let people know that it's been years and years. I mean, we're approaching relatively shortly a half decade of why doesn't Walmart, CVS, or Amazon release a competitor? Or when will they? When will they do it? When's that shoe going to drop? And it hasn't happened. And I think it relates to really just how difficult the vertical integration strategy is that we talked about earlier.
I think from a emotional, visceral level, patients just want an experience where they're not like seen as a number or something like that. And I think I've got the sense from people when they're looking for a healthcare provider or something or exploring telemedicine, I've heard from people that they don't really want to use the Walmart service or the Amazon service. That seems kind of weird to them. It's like, I don't want to be part of this big machine of Amazon. I like the look of Hims and hers. I like how my doctor messaged me right away. I like feeling like I'm part of this, almost like a concierge type of medical practice. And it's not this big box Walmart place. So I think just from an emotional level, I think there's that level of, I don't want to say distrust of like a Walmart or Amazon, but just I think people just feel better going to a Hims or a Hims type of medical practice?
I think those ideas are really important. I think it's huge. People don't associate Amazon with like talking to somebody about sexual health. That's it's like doesn't even compute. I think it's really powerful. I totally see what Dr. H is saying there.
I want to close with looking to the future a bit. If we could spell out best case scenario, Hims achieves its goals beyond its wildest dreams, what might that look like for healthcare and the company? And then on the other side, what is the bear case?
Dr. H, you want to start with what you see the long-term path is, and then just a short comment on the bear thesis?
Yeah, just from a medical standpoint, just because the whole world telemedicine is new, accelerated by COVID, we don't know what the future may entail in terms of regulations, FDA regulations, and their ability for Hims to work around supply issues and whether they can still do weight management medicines for the GLP-1s. On a broader level, we don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but what if for some whatever reason, all of a sudden there's severe restrictions on the telemedicine world? Like if there's a new law or something that's introduced and a patient can only do a virtual visit, one time every 2 years or whatever, unforeseen regulations could possibly come. One of the biggest medical bear theses is, for some reason, the ability to perform telemedicine is just severely restricted.
I think it's a valid way to look at it. I personally would say it's overblown, but I was watching a documentary about a ghost city in either Singapore or Malaysia, and it was like this $200 billion development or some astronomical amount. I think 200 billion might be outlandish, but it was like meant to house millions and millions of people. It was one of those ghost cities that you see on YouTube. The reason it became a ghost city was because I think it was the Malaysian government changed a regulation that prevented the target demographic for the community, which was wealthy Chinese people, from immigrating to Malaysia, taking up residency and buying a property. And then I was watching, I was like, wow, the government just, this guy, they're talking to the main guy and he's like, yeah, I think we're going to be all right. And you look at the development, it's like millions of people could live there. It's a total ghost city. And you've probably seen these on YouTube. And like they're panning to the ghost city. It's like, like I'm 100 billion. I think 200 billion is too much. They said something in the documentary. They threw that number around for some reason. But he's like, I'm 200 million in, and it's like, I'm happy you're saying positive, but the government shut this down. So that's a legitimate bear thesis. But can I respond to what the thesis could look like over time?
Yeah. Let's paint a happier picture.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Bears have gotten a lot of punches in over the last 4 years. They've been swinging and landing a lot of blows. But I think the one thing I would say for the two vantage points that I would look at Hims through are, number one, dating back to the time when the company went public, it has laid out projections, it has laid out plans, and it has over-delivered on every single one of those projections and every single one of those plans, or it has just fulfilled them in the way that it said it would. So we're at nearly 4 years now of promising and over-delivering on their promises. And so, what does the future of Hims look like? I think it's worth talking to management, asking management what they think it will be based on their stellar, unblemished track record thus far. And they believe they're going to have 10 million members. They believe that they're going to be, I think that's a medium-term goal. They believe that they're going to be in every household in America. And they believe, importantly, attached to this, for the finance people out there, that they're going to be able to achieve at least 15% free cash flow margins on this business model. And then the second, and that's a good segue into my second
currently they're at what, 2 million members? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5x from here, medium term.
And then, so on the subject of the business model, I think it's just important to look at Hims as a competitor to the primary care physician. Dr. H and I, because we talk so much, behind the scenes about telemedicine and various things related to it, we've been witnessing the shortcomings of the urgent care paradigm against which Hims competes virtually 1-to-1. And we've just had this experience recently where it was like, wow, this is such a powerful business model. And it's been tried in some wonky form or fashion with Teladoc specifically. And let's talk about that on another podcast, because that's a whole podcast unto itself. But Hims is for the first time producing positive unit economics, positive free cash flow, growing at scale, and it has fielded a very legitimate competitor to the primary care and urgent care model. And people don't see it like that currently. They see it as selling sexual health and hair health pills effectively. When I personally believe it has so much more potential and should be seen as a profitable, digitally native urgent care primary care physician at national scale with a mountain of proprietary data. Execution is really important, but that comes back to point one. They've promised and they've over-delivered on everything. So I'm excited for this first video. I think we're going to do many more videos on Hims as it evolves as a business.